Energetic bondage. What a large topic, right? Um, the, all of us in some way are tied, energetically to the people around us. It doesn't matter, if you're talking about family or, if you feel like you have a tie or an energetic responsibility to somebody, then that's some kind of energetic tie or bondage, right? Whoever's showing up in your energy field and who you're thinking about along, a lot of the times, you're creating that energetic tie to that person. I've got the old Illuminati thing, and that's on the back of the dollar bill, because the dollar is a form of energetic bondage, right? If you're required to use that to obtain something, that's a form of energetic bondage, versus just giving something freely. You're when you're giving something freely, you're not tied energetically to the outcome of how it's received, if that makes sense. But when you charge something, now you're tied energetically to the outcome of how that's received. This is something that's really not talked about that much, that's really important to understand, especially as somebody who's like, let's say you're a coach or you're a consultant. If you're selling a product, you are tied energetically to the outcome of how much or whether or not that person is making something from that energetic tie, right? Because you're placing a value on the energy that you're giving to somebody, and it's getting returned in like way. So you're just like the last video, you're basically feeding, you're giving and receiving on the three-dimensional plane without accessing the divine at all. And based on the last video, you really know you don't need to interact with the divine or source at all, or the tree of life, in order to use that model. And so in this way, that's how on the three-dimensional plane you're able to siphon all of that energy into one spot. If you see, I mean, that's what this is called, right? The illuminating signal. So all the energy is being siphoned up from the base of the pyramid to the top. And if you notice, this is disconnected, so that information isn't being allowed to go back down. That's how our hierarchical society works, right? Because they created the mode of energy for information to be captured at the top. That's what this symbol means. It's how it works. It's an energetic bondage. When you're forcing people to interact using this, the dollar bill, then you can capture all of that energy, or all the information that goes on with the energy exchange using that dollar bill. And so, this is an easy secret to see from the outside, and it's why a lot of, business or the community has started to create decentralized currency, but you're still energetically buying into the system that is using that currency. So you're allowing them to make those decisions as to which currency we're going to use, right? So even if you were to start using another currency or a decentralized currency, if a central authority is controlling that currency, it doesn't matter what currency it is, then you still have a centralized decision-making platform, then it can be co-opted into siphoning information, right? Knowledge is power. That's the number one thing that everyone realizes. And because knowledge is power, then you can create this model to siphon all the information. So I wanted to look at this a little bit more specifically as far as how we're energetically bonded and tied to one another in these hierarchical systems. So if you look, your average company where you've got this conductor that's moving product to consumer. This is the same way as your body works. It's just a conductor of energy and information. And this conductor is only as good as the resistances between all of these people. and you're being energetically tied to, in the current system, let's say the president or the owner of the company, if this isn't a co-op, if this is a sole-owned company, or let's say a group of board members that owns, the primary shares of this company, then this is the controlling entity in the middle. And everybody else then is energetically tied to that entity, right? Because they're making the decisions, they control the wages of everybody else. All the decisions are made, so it forces you to ask for anything that you need. You're not working as a group to make decisions. You're not deciding things in a decentralized way. In this model on the left, everything is centralized. So this model on the right is representative of the centralized model here on the left, where everyone is tied energetically to this one thing, which is representative of the first slide of our Illuminati symbol, right? Because it's centralization. So, basically, if the information from this person never reaches this person over here, because it's just not necessary. Everything is being siphoned here so that everybody in the middle can make decisions for the whole, instead of in the decentralized way where each group is making decisions and then interacting with every other group that way. So, there was an attempt to decentralize for currency, but there has never been an attempt to decentralize for information, if that makes sense. So there's multiple ways that you are energetically tied in this structure, because since you're asking for permission from all these positions, you're tied energetically this way, this person's tied energetically that way, and the central is basically pulling all that energy, and is not really, and that's why the current model is self-destructing, because as these models get bigger, they get more dysfunctional because there's so much resistance between all these spots, especially if you're working in a wage-based type business where your wage is independent of the profits of the company, right? Because you're basically a separate organism. So this would become a separate organism from the whole, since you're wage-based. That's just one example. Just the fact that this position is making more money than these positions, now you've got a incentive to keep moving in this direction, and so these relationships break down. There's competition to move to this position, and a natural organism and a natural body doesn't work that way. There is more energy moving at different spots. Let's say this is a tree diagram and you naturally move to this position, but there's not really competition. It's a more natural growth where these people, out of this group decide how, this person's going to move forward, right? It's all the decisions happen in a decentralized fashion. And it's more of a group development. The same thing happens in your body. If your body individually are making decisions, and its intents are all the same, and there's no differences in potential, or else your body breaks down. When there's differences in potential, then communication breaks down and your body grows cancerous. And so that's what we're seeing in our society at large. So this, this last slide here kind of just covers that basic thought pattern. Any kind of pyramid scheme is going to cause an energetic tie. There's a product that a group of people that I know are selling that's built in like a pyramid model. Well, that's not really let's say I'm selling this product here. At the top side, you've got people that are in different positions and providing support in different ways for the products. You might have people that are selling, people that are supporting the sellers, and then the product itself. The problem with this is, eventually everybody has the same level of knowledge and the same level of responsibility for selling a product, but there's differences in potential in all these areas on how that product's being sold. So it creates conflict. It's always going to create conflict because somebody's going to make more money, and somebody's going to be making more money off of somebody else's sales. So there's an energetic bondage there. Let's say I'm a salesman. I'm actually tied energetically to somebody else that really isn't having to do anything but provide information. Their job function is different, but eventually this person, the level of responsibility is the same, especially when this person knows everything there is to know about this product, and this person doesn't have to do anything anymore. So it just becomes just kind of a money siphon, if that makes sense. So you see that as an example for this. This is a type of relationship too. When you're always asking permission from somebody and you're never working together as a team, that's the basic of the energetic tie to the hierarchical model. So when you have to ask permission to do something, then you're handicapped. And oftentimes, this person just becomes disinterested in even, paying attention to you, because they're just basically pulling energy from everybody around them, and they don't need to do anything anymore. That's, the whole concept of what we see as a society when you have a group of investors that invest into a business, and then they basically, just siphon the energy off of that business, and they just, are sitting on a boat somewhere out in the Caribbean, right? They're not doing anything. They're just making investments and becoming lethargic, right? How are they serving society? It's just a dysfunctional system. There's no group incentive. There's not, everybody doesn't have their own tasks, and they're not serving each other in any way. So the opposite of this is, our happy kitty over here, who's totally independent, has a lot of self-love, and that can lead to this. But you see this temporarily in our current system, but it's always temporary, right? Successful teamwork happens in teams, but if they have to answer to somebody, then eventually it looks like this, right? Because eventually you can make temporary victories, but then you have to ask permission on what your next task is. So move towards this first, right? Following your heart and healing all of those traumas that makes you feel like you need to be energetically tied to something. It's really difficult to do, because you really have to have faith and trust in the divine that you're going to be supported when you're in service to the people around you. So that's how you strengthen your connection with the divine, and you realize that love is the only thing that really exists. These other structures over here are all fear-based, right? Because this person's in a victimized consciousness. Our little chicken here. I love the chicken drawings. They're so informative, right? This person's mad, and then this person blames their own unhappiness for this person's madness, when that's the opposite. If we just separate and spend some time thinking about why they're unhappy, it has nothing to do with somebody else's state of mind. It's just the fact that, he's energetically tied to this person's unhappiness. And the same thing happens here, right? When you're handicapped because you're energetically tied to this person's indifference, and you can't make decisions for yourself. So I really wanted to make this video because there's a lot that goes into energetic bonding in your relationships. If you feel like you're not good enough for somebody, and you feel like you need to get somebody's attention or chase somebody in any way, you're in an unhealthy energetic bond. Really need to take some time for yourself and realize how much self-worth you have. You are an infinite being. You just need to make sure you're meditating and making your connection to the divine, and continue to serve the people around you the way you feel like you need to, And don't, you know, I would strongly recommend not creating a monetary exchange for all those, because there's, especially if you're not ready to, and you're not confident in what you're serving, you know, you're going to get feedback the correct way. And ultimately, you know, the healthiest organism is going to move away from money completely, right? Because it forces you to serve people correctly. If there's no money involved, then your survival is going to be based on how well you serve the people around you, and not how much money you have in your pocket. And that's actually the underlying reality of what's going on anyway, right? How well you serve the people around you is how well you're living anyway, and how fulfilling your life is. It has nothing to do with how much money you have in your pocket. That money is a false sense of security, because the money can go away tomorrow, right? And we're actually seeing that on a larger scale. I believe that's what we're going through on an evolutionary basis. So I'd love to hear your comments on this video and what you guys think, you know, where we're headed. There is a very large awakening as far as how we serve each other and how best we can work together. Because when you're working together as a team, you might be making money as a team, and you're answering to each other, and you're making group decisions together. You know, that's the healthiest type of group that is working together, where there's no difference in potential between the two of you or the three of you or 10 of you, where you're all working together, and if one person is learning, you know, maybe they're making a little bit less money, and so but they're still serving the group, and everybody is growing. You can't say that one person's level of growth is less than or more than somebody else's level of growth, because we're all growing and we're all learning. So yeah, love you guys, and I think the world of you. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're at. I love you. Bye.